Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're tackling a topic that always seems to spark debate and fascination. Synchronicity.
Synchronicity, huh? Yeah, those moments where it feels like the universe is winking at you.
Exactly. Like those times when events just seem weirdly connected, almost too perfectly to be just coincidence.
Like you're thinking about an old friend, and then boom, they call you out of the blue.
Exactly. It's wild, right? And for this deep dive, we'll be drawing a lot from Carl Jung's work. He's the psychologist who really brought this concept to light. And get this, he actually collaborated with a quantum physicist to explore it.
Quantum physics and meaningful coincidences. That's not your typical pairing.
Seriously. But before we get lost down that rabbit hole, let's just start with the basics. What exactly are we talking about when we say synchronicity? What does it really mean?
Well, think of it this way. Synchronicity is about events that seem connected not by a cause, like one thing directly leading to another, but by meaning.
So it's more than just a random coincidence.
Right, there's a sense of significance, like maybe even destiny, attached to these events. They resonate with us on a deeper level.
Can you give us an example, like something that really captures what this is all about?
Sure. Imagine you dream about this rare bird you've never even seen before, you don't even know its name, and then the next day you're walking in the park and bam, there it is.
Whoa. Okay, I get it. But how do we know if it's really synchronicity or just a regular coincidence?
Yeah.
I mean, coincidences happen all the time.
That's true. But there are a few key things to look for. First, think about causality.
Causality.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a direct cause and effect relationship between the events?
Right. With synchronicity, there isn't. The events might seem connected, but there's no logical explanation for why.
No direct link. Got it. What else?
Oh, well, there's got to be a meaningful connection. Like, it can't just be random. The events have to resonate with each other somehow.
So a sense of meaning. Makes sense. What else should we look for?
Think about the impact these events have on you. Synchronicity usually evokes this feeling of awe, like, whoa, how did that happen?
It's like the universe is trying to tell you something.
Yeah, something like that. And of course, synchronicities are unpredictable. They just pop up out of nowhere.
So no cause and effect, deep meaning, a big impact, and unpredictable.
Got it. It's starting to become clearer. But I have to ask, how did Jung, a psychologist, end up working with a quantum physicist on this? It's such an unusual pairing.
Well, you see, Jung was already exploring the idea of interconnectedness within the human psyche. He called it the collective unconscious.
Collective unconscious.
Yeah, it's like this deep well of shared human experiences, images, archetypes, things that connect us all on a deeper level.
Interesting. So both Jung and this physicist, Pauli, were both looking into this hidden interconnectedness in their own ways.
Exactly. Jung with the human mind, Pauli with the quantum world. They saw parallels between their fields, like a mirror reflecting the same idea in different ways.
So a psychologist and a quantum physicist walk into a bar and end up discussing synchronicity.
Okay, I can't help but wonder, how did Jung even start exploring this in the first place? Was it just a random thought, or was there something that sparked his interest?
It wasn't random at all. He was really influenced by his work with patients. He noticed a pattern.
Oh, what kind of pattern?
Many of his patients would talk about these weird, meaningful coincidences they had experienced. And often, these synchronicities would show up during times of big life changes, like a personal crisis or a period of growth.
So he started seeing these synchronicities as more than just random events, maybe like signposts on a person's journey.
Right. He saw them as having real psychological significance, like a way for the unconscious to communicate something important.
Wow. I'm starting to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. We haven't even touched on archetypes yet.
We'll get there. But that's a story for another time, I think.
I guess we'll have to save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good to me. All right, so last time we were starting to wade into Jung's idea of the collective unconscious. And to really understand that, we need to talk about archetypes.
Archetypes. Okay, I remember hearing that word before, but remind me, what are they exactly?
Think of them like universal patterns, these fundamental building blocks of human experience that are kind of hardwired into us.
Like instincts?
Kind of, but bigger than that. They're like these blueprints for human behavior and experiences. And they show up everywhere, in myths, in stories, in dreams, across all sorts of cultures.
So not just instincts, more like these universal, recurring themes and patterns in human experience.
You got it. Think about it. The hero, the wise old man, the trickster. These figures pop up in stories all over the world.
Oh yeah, that's true. Like, even if the details of the stories are different, the underlying characters and themes are often very similar. So how do these archetypes tie back into the collective unconscious?
Well, Jung believed that these archetypes aren't just random ideas. They're actually part of this shared unconscious that we all tap into.
So we're all connected to this pool of archetypes, even if we don't consciously realize it.
Exactly. It's like this invisible network that links us all together on a deep psychological level. And here's where it gets interesting. Jung believed that synchronicity might be one way this connection shows up in our lives.
Hold on, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So you're saying those meaningful coincidences, those synchronicities, could actually be linked to these archetypes.
Exactly. Imagine you're going through a tough time, lots of change and uncertainty, and then you keep seeing images of a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Okay, so the phoenix, the symbol of rebirth and transformation, it keeps popping up right when I'm going through my own period of change and upheaval.
You got it. It's
Yeah.
like that archetype, the phoenix, is somehow resonating both within you and in the events around you. Jung saw those kinds of synchronicities as a way for the collective unconscious to kind of nudge us in the right direction.
Like a cosmic tap on the shoulder.
Something like that. And it's not just about individual growth, it's about our connection to something larger than ourselves.
Okay, now you have to remind me about that golden scarab story. It's the one that always comes to mind when I think about synchronicity.
Oh, yeah, that one's a classic. So Jung was with a patient, and she was describing a dream she had about a golden scarab beetle.
Scarab beetles, those were like sacred symbols in ancient Egypt, right? Like symbols of transformation.
Exactly. And get this. While she's describing this dream, a real scarab beetle flies into Jung's office and starts bumping against the window.
No way. Seriously. It's like the universe was trying to make a point. But, some people are probably rolling their eyes right now thinking, that's just a coincidence. What are the odds?
Well, that's the thing about synchronicity. It's hard to prove definitively.
Because it's based on subjective experience. Like, how do you measure the meaning someone attaches to an event?
Right. It's not like you can run a scientific experiment to test it.
Okay, so it's not exactly hard science. But even if we can't scientifically prove it, Jung believed that synchronicity points to something much deeper going on.
Exactly. And his ideas have resonated with people across cultures and throughout history.
It's like this idea that we're all interconnected has been popping up in spiritual and philosophical traditions for centuries.
You're absolutely right. Think about Taoism, for example. The concept of the Tao, this flow of the universe, it's all about interconnectedness and the idea that seemingly unrelated events are all part of a larger whole.
So those meaningful coincidences, they're not just random flukes. They might actually be reflections of this deeper web of connections that we're all part of. But let's be real, not everyone buys into this idea, right? There are skeptics out there.
Of course, and some of their arguments are valid, like our brains are pattern-seeking machines.
So we're wired to see connections even where they might not exist.
Right. It's like our brains are trying to make sense of the world, so sometimes we see patterns and meaning even in random events.
And how do you separate real synchronicity from just our brains playing tricks on us?
It's a good question, and there's no easy answer. But I think being aware of that tendency to see patterns is a good first step. And remember, not every coincidence has to be a profound synchronicity.
It's about finding that balance between being open to the possibility of something more while still being grounded in reality.
Exactly. And even if you approach it with a healthy dose of skepticism, there's still something fascinating about these experiences and how they make us question our understanding of the world.
It's like this peek behind the curtain. Like, maybe there's more to reality than we typically perceive. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Okay, so we've talked about the psychology, the collective unconscious, the archetypes, even a bit of quantum physics. But here's the big question that's been bugging me. Is there actually some kind of unseen force out there? Something actually orchestrating these synchronicities? Or is it all just supercharged coincidence?
Yeah. Well, that's a question that's been debated for a long, long time. And honestly, it kind of takes us to the edge of what we know and what we can even really talk about. Jung himself grappled with this. He even had this idea of what he called the psychoid.
Psychoid. Sounds kind of spooky. What is that?
It's a bit complex, but basically he was trying to describe a realm where mind and matter might actually intersect.
So a hidden dimension where thoughts and intentions could actually shape the physical world.
It's a mind-bending idea, right? And there are actually modern theories that kind of echo that. Like some people talk about this universal consciousness or a field of interconnectedness that influences both our inner world and the outer world.
Okay, I'm trying to keep up. So are you saying that maybe our consciousness actually interacts with reality in ways we don't fully understand? that we're not just observing reality, but actually shaping it.
It's trippy, isn't it? And some people even draw connections to quantum physics, saying that the act of observation itself might play a role in shaping what we observe.
Hold on, I thought we were talking about psychology, not physics.
It all ties together somehow. But this whole idea of unseen forces, it raises some big questions about free will. If there's something else pulling the strings, do our choices even matter? Like, are we just puppets? It's a common concern. But I don't think recognizing interconnectedness means we have to throw out free will. It's not about saying everything is predetermined. It's more about recognizing that there might be forces at play that we're not fully aware of. Maybe we're co-creating our reality, both through our choices and through this deeper dance with the universe.
Okay, so maybe we're not just puppets. But still, if we start looking for synchronicities everywhere,
Yeah.
isn't there a risk of, like, seeing them even when they're not there?
Oh, absolutely. It's like anything else. If you're looking for something, you're more likely to find it, even if it's not really there. We have to be careful not to overinterpret every little coincidence as some profound message from the universe.
And how do we strike that balance? Being open to the possibility of synchronicity without going overboard.
It's about discernment, right? Not every coincidence is a major life sign. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Okay, so a healthy dose of skepticism is a good thing.
Definitely. But at the same time, don't be afraid to be open to the mystery of it all. Pay attention to those moments that make you go, huh, what are the odds? Those are the moments that might be trying to tell you something.
I like that. So it's not about blindly believing in magic, but it's also not about dismissing those moments that feel meaningful. It's about paying attention, being curious, and maybe even having a little fun with it.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe in that curiosity, in that openness to the unknown, we'll discover something truly amazing about ourselves and the world around us.
That's a great note to end on.
Right.
Thanks for diving into this fascinating topic with me. And hey, listeners, keep your eyes peeled for those synchronicities. You never know what messages the universe might be sending your way.